We're starting with the executive summary on succession planning within ESS BIZTOOLS Business Advisory Services. So this contains a list of the material that's contained within succession planning. Together with the various forms that are included within the material. So we'll just download that. We're downloading that in a Word document because it's a bit easier to present when we're doing webinars. So succession planning covers a wide range of areas, and we're going to go through some of those this afternoon. We're going to look at the succession planning questionnaire that we've developed to help you undertake this discussion with your client, and we're going to talk about identifying succession issues and showing you the checklist which we've got to assist you in monitoring this process with your client. And in very rare cases are you going to finalize this process quickly. It's going to take time. So what I'm showing you at first is the paper or the article that anchors this discussion on succession planning within ESS BIZTOOLS Business Advisory Services. If you wanted to brand this paper, you could by putting your logo and your firm name above those double lines. But this is an internal use paper. So other than for your own identification, you wouldn't be wanting to send it anywhere else. We have a list of contents which covers, first of all, the budget and the planning, and then gets into the proposal document, and then to the actual documentation of items that have been discussed. So we might just go into those, or we'll get past the formalities of the engagement because I'll come back to those a bit later on. But this document is giving an overview of what needs to be done. So our suggestion is that the accountant that's going to be sitting down and talking on succession issues with the client reads this material first and develops their own strategy of how this assignment's going to be approached with the client. As you can see, we are linked to the various forms that are contained within the paper to assist you in undertaking this process. So the paper is there to assist you in giving you a good understanding of how everything works. And what we're now going to do is to go into the forms themselves, because this is what drives our business advisory services products. So and I raised the wrong one then. I just want to go back. The first document to review is probably the succession plan questionnaire. This hopefully will give you some guidance for having a discussion with your client. Now we're assuming this is a business client. They're running a business and they're wanting to start planning their succession. So it's going to cover a review of a range of matters: the management of the business, the actual operations of the business, the competency of the team, budgets, cash flow forecasts, corporate governance that's already operational within the business. How easy is it going to be to replace the key person that you're undertaking this succession review with? How's the business exit going to be done? Or as part of the business exit to start thinking about an initial public offer, an IPO. Some of these processes are going to take a few years to be able to be finalised. And part of the question is going to be at such things as, what are the secrets of the business? What's the owner or the CEO carrying around in his or her head? Are there buy-sell agreements? And what about the family? What's the family's objectives? And also what's the business objectives of the family? Is there a need to professionalise the business management to achieve a successful succession? So they're the type of questions that we believe that you initially need to be asking to undertake the succession. And we've designed this form which hopefully assists you in identifying areas of concern relative to the succession. As you can see, they're linked back to the actual form, so that as you go through this process you can refer back to this document, Identification of Succession Issues, and use it as a means of being able to document what your particular concerns may be for some of these items. And we're going to go through and look at some of these, most of these in this webinar today. But there's quite a number of interrelated items to be considered in undertaking a succession plan assignment with a client. So the first detailed questionnaire, other than the opening one, is to look at what's the current owner's strategies. What are they wanting to achieve? Are they wanting to create a legacy in this business, or is it something for their children or their grandchildren? Or are they trying to get the business ready for sale? Is that part of the succession process? So are they building this business for a lifetime, or is it for an exit? Very important question. And in some cases, people are looking for an each-way bet. And what about some of the personal issues relative to succession? This probably depends on the age of your client, of course. But if some people hang on too long in business because they're fearful of what the next adventure in their business might bring. Are they fearful of retirement? And how can the exit in this business be achieved? And the reasons we've got all these various suggestions or questions here is this is not a simple subject. And those of you who have done some work in succession planning, I'm sure will agree. There are a lot of diversions, there are a lot of side issues that can emerge. So we're raising some issues here. Could a partner buy the current owner or partner in the business out? Could a new partner be introduced to the business to buy you out? Could you hand the business on to a family member? Could you look at skipping a generation in effect by introducing an external person as a CEO to run the business until such time as grandchildren may be ready to run the business? Or should you be thinking about a trade sale to a competitor? And that is how the succession is going to be achieved. So there's these various paths that one could go down on succession planning. that need to be thought through and need to be discussed with your client. Are they interested in doing an initial public offer? Some people see an IPO as a way to implement succession planning within the business. But that's going to take a fair amount of work unless it's already underway. Some people might just want to close the business down, sell off whatever assets they believe are saleable and sail off into the sunset, as it were. That's not the process I'd recommend in most cases. I like to think that if someone has successfully run a business, there is some tangible value to that business that someone else might be able to utilize, even if it's only getting access to the customer list. Now, is the business exit ready, or is it succession ready? And this really is getting back to a question, and we talked about this in a webinar earlier in the week on being ready to sell a business. The succession may well be selling the business to a competitor, to a major business operating in this field. But is the business in its best possible state to affect a sale at this stage? Or is there a whole work schedule that needs to be undertaken? What's the concerns of the current owner or CEO? What's making them think about wanting to exit the business? There could be some other reasons here that perhaps could need some further review. Can this business survive if the CEO or the owner are not involved in it? There's too much built around that person. If they don't exist in the business, well, the customer's going to retain their loyalty to the business. Could some of the current management team take over some of the roles of the current person that you're advising on succession? So there's some of the questions that we believe need to be answered in that concept. Also, we have a questionnaire on strategic planning. Has the CEO or the owner developed any sort of strategic plan? Has he visualized what is the end in this, we're assuming here is a family business? What's the person's individual plan? What's he trying to achieve? And we've got a number of ideas there that you might be able to then explore. Now, hopefully you're not going to get a client that's going to be ticking all these boxes as you go through and have this conversation, but hopefully out of all this you're going to be able to define it and understand what are the key issues so that you can give the advice that's needed to strengthen this business. Now then we've got some questionnaires on all sorts of components. Now you might be able to eliminate some of these after you've had those preliminary discussions with your client. But let's go through them. Where's the business? Where's it going? Is this just a change of a person within the team and it's intended that the business is going to continue? Is there a board of directors and a board of advice, and would they continue? Is the business suitable for sale as a going concern? Would someone be prepared to pay 5, 6, 7 times after-tax earnings? And you may have to soften the blow a bit with the client to warn them that if they need some processes put in place, this could take 2 to 3 years. And if you're looking at the business, what's a realistic price? Because you might have to do a price gap type calculation and then be identifying strategies to try to bridge the gap between what you believe the business is worth based on how the market appraises businesses, and what the client's telling you he or she thinks it's worth. You know, the client might be sitting there thinking their business is worth $2 million, and you think it's worth $700,000. Now, there's a gap there of $1.3 million. The client may turn around and accept your figure of $700,000 and be happy to take it if they can find a buyer. But alternatively, the owner might be of the mood that, no, I still want to get $2 million, so you better tell me what we've got to do in this business to make it worth $2 million. And it's some of these businesses, when you're starting to look at improving their value, I think the best example to be saying to the client is that your recommendation could be on the lines that the business should be run as if it was a public company. And what's a public company do? And this will really help if they've got any sort of idea of an IPO, or indeed any sort of idea of trying to sell to a major company. Because major companies like audited financial accounts. Major companies will pay a premium for a business that has its house in order. So what are the systems? Who are the management team? How regularly are they getting financial accounts? Are they analysing those accounts? Are they looking at benchmarks? Are they looking at key performance indicators? What team training is there? And has there been external audits so that a purchaser could have some reliance on the financial figures that have been submitted? And obviously, if you're going to go down that path, and that's the discussion with the client to try to get the value up to $2 million, I think was the example I gave you a moment ago, there needs to be an acceptance from the client of how long this is going to take and what the strategy is going to be. And you would need to submit a proposal, probably more in line with assistance in getting the business ready for sale. And what are some of the things that you might be having discussions on as you talk to your client about this? Well, I'd be encouraging the client to talk to some other people who have successfully sold their business. And perhaps there should be some discussions going on with the business broker as to what the values are. And how can the systems be improved to make the business look better? What about the management team? Because presumably they're going to be staying on with the business, especially if it's going to be sold. So is there people within the business able to effectively perform their duties? Or do they need the owner, CEO there to be making every decision that's going on in the business? If so, you've got a big problem because you've got to really be able to replace that person. Or a buyer is going to be having to factor into the equation that they have got big problems if they're going to pay a fair bit of money for this business, that their management person has to be able to understand every facet of the business. So have job descriptions been prepared? Is there an authority chart? Do people understand what their roles are? Has the owner ever been away from the business for any length of time, 3 or 4 weeks on a holiday? And has the business continued to operate? So there's some of the questions you might consider. We have some questions here. If the company has a board of directors, has a board been appointed? Or is it a board of advice? But what's going on with that board? Is it an effective board? Is it really giving advice? And it's part of the process, of course, if the owner believes that there's some further work that can be done to make this business more valuable. What about employees? Presumably they're fairly important to the structure of the business. They might be very important if there's going to be a sale as part of the succession plan strategy, because a purchaser is going to be having a good look at that sale, at that team, the salesmen, the production people, the marketing people, the accounting people, and deciding whether they want to keep them on, whether they're confident that these people can continue to add value to the business. So there's questions there about that to help the planning of these issues, because if you're going to try to sell the business, you need to make sure that these items have been fixed. Otherwise the offer is going to be very low. It might only be 2 times after-tax profit. I believe it's also necessary that you have this conversation with your client. Do you have enough money to retire? If that's what they're planning to do as part of this succession. They might not be in planning to retire, but if they are. So there's some of the questions there that you might put to them so that you've got a better idea. Now, if this business is your client already, a lot of these items you will probably know the answers to. But in undertaking business advisory service, we know that you're going to be getting work from people who are not currently your clients, because a lot of accountancy firms at this stage, we believe to their peril, are ignoring this sort of work. So hopefully you'll get some work from some other firms. And if you do, hopefully you secure whatever additional work you want from them. So looking at the corporate structure, is this a company? Who are the shareholders? Are the records up to date? The directors' registers, the registered office? Is there a plan for any sort of change to be made to the corporate structure? So you might have that discussion. What about ownership issues? Is there a rule in this family that only family members can be shareholders? Are you going to try to determine a price of what the business might be worth and then try to sell it to a family member? How can a family member pay for it? If the family member is going to be relying on the surplus cash flow from the business, are you really confident that that cash flow is going to exist, which it's going to be able to be used to pay the retiring CEO or owner from those excess proceeds? What security is the current owner going to take, because this is his business or her business that is being sold off? What are some of the legal issues that you might like to raise? Obviously the business structure is one. Trustees, who are the trustees, who are the beneficiaries? Is there any sort of agreements or constitution or shareholders agreements that are going to guide how various decisions might have to be made relative to the succession issue? What sort of restraints of trade have been entered into? Confidentiality agreements? Is there any dispute as to who owns intellectual property? Is it owned by the person that's planning to do the succession? Or are there other people within the organisations that he or she know that they didn't quite bed down some of these items? Well, it'd be nice to have them sorted out before they leave the business. And it's very important they're bedded down if the business is being sold. Patents might be treated the same way. Let's move on to a really interesting area. Is there a family charter or constitution? Now, family charters and constitutions were not very well known 10 years ago, but there's more and more of them emerging. The Australian Family Business Association has been encouraging family businesses to develop a charter or a constitution. So obviously if there is one, you need to be guided by what it says is what will happen in a succession issue. But if there's not, and this business is going to continue for a few years as it gets its house in order, perhaps the family constitution is something that should be considered, so that the wider views of the family relative to this business can be brought into play. And this sort of document is also very important to help and protect those members of the family and the external non-family members who are involved in the management of the business not to be interfered with by family members, so that family members understand where they go if they're wanting information on various aspects of how the business is operating. In other words, some formal procedures can be put in place to assist in communications. We also have some notes then on a family council. Again, the initial question is, are you utilising a family council? If you're not, you can probably ignore these questions. But perhaps, a bit like the Constitution, the current CEO owner may be motivated to form a family council as part of a succession strategy, especially if the strategy is going to involve some sort of handing over the business to a one or more family members. It may be the opportune time to structure in some rules and procedures and processes by forming a family council. And a family council can act as an ideal conduit between the broader family and the actual business operations, because as family businesses grow, obviously not all members of the family are involved in the business on a day-to-day basis. We have a personal due diligence list, which I believe is very important, that all your clients should be encouraged to complete, but especially someone it's contemplating succession. What companies is he involved in? Trusts, shares, partnerships. What secret agreements has your client negotiated with suppliers, customers, for technology? What sort of covers have they got in insurance? What's owned? Really a complete list, so that if something happened to them in this process before all the work's completed, you've got some idea where to go to look to find various aspects of their assets. Details of intellectual property, trade secrets, etc. So that gives you the opportunity to have a good look at wide range of matters to do with what the person has in their records. I've had a question come through. How would you implement this? Questions and resources are great, but how do we introduce it? Do we make a series of meetings and just work through each of the questionnaires? Basically, I probably skipped over, and we'll just go back to the beginning. Our whole approach to this is that we're suggesting that initially you'll have had a one-on-one meeting, we call it, with the client. You'll brief the client that you're offering business advisory services, and you sit down and have a conversation with them. And at that conversation, you use the SME Needs Analysis, which we've prepared. Now, this needs analysis is going to encourage your client to make comments about all sorts of aspects of their business. So I'm going through a review of the current operations on the screen at present, looking at a whole range of things. And then we move into taxation planning. We're coming to succession planning, and then you'll be looking at some of the future planning, how the business is going, the valuation of the business. Have you thought about you might want to sell? Then you go into wealth creation type areas. Now, you're not going to get answers to each one of these questions, but I believe what you're going to do is to start to get some comments by the client as to what they are looking for. And then we have a particular questions on succession and estate planning. And what I'm saying to you is that this type of questionnaire approach, using it more as a menu of services that your firm is operating, will encourage your client to start having discussions with you and saying, oh, I probably should have be thinking about succession planning, or I'm wanting to retire in a year's time. What can you do to help me? And it's following on from that discussion that you would then be utilizing the forms and the questionnaires that I've shown you today to implement a strategy to suit that client. Now, I said it at the beginning, not every case is going to be the same. This is a situation of trying to understand what are the peculiar circumstances relating to this client, and then trying to understand the issues so that a strategy can be presented to assist him or her in their succession planning. So hopefully that answers that type of question. Within the material, we also have a quotation form to assist, and I've gone to the wrong one, I think, to assist in preparing the quotation. And I'm not in the forms, that's the problem, sorry. Within that form, we have got cross-reference to all of the items which we've mentioned today, so you can click onto those, get an idea what's involved, and you can then record the time estimate for how long you think it's going to take to have particular discussions with clients. And that hopefully will assist you in preparing the quotation for the work to be undertaken. And there is a proposal, an engagement letter for the assignment, outlining what you are going to do. Obviously, you need to edit this if you're not going to undertake some of these aspects of what we've identified there of work to be done. We believe it's very important that you submit a written proposal to the client, which includes a timetable, includes the quotation, and includes details of the payment terms, so that the client's under no misunderstandings as to how this work is going to be undertaken.